All right. So, welcome, guys. Welcome to the Brand Identity Design Business Podcast. My name is Jason. I am your host for today's show. And I'm doing a self sponsored episode for today. And I would be explaining the different types of podcast sponsorship which exist out there. I want to give you a brief overview of what my show is about. Typically, I speak about entrepreneurship and I interview interesting people throughout the seasons which I do. And for a change, I decided to do something a little different. I wanted to actually support the podcasting community. I see there is a lot of mismatch or mix match of information when it comes to sponsorship. So I started actually doing podcasting almost a year back, and I was like, let me gather some resources and see if we can format this in a way it is easily digestible to people. And that's what I did. It took me a year's worth of research, try to find out, what works, what does not work. And I was able to curate this list. To give you some context, why you should pay attention to me, because my podcast is heard in about 23 countries. It currently ranks on Spotify on the top 30%, most followed business podcast. Additionally, I also perform very well on social media. It's on the top 5% most shared podcast on social media, and I had recently the honor of winning the Anchor Spotlight Awards by Spotify also for January 2023, recognizing my efforts in excellence and contribution to the podcasting industry. I'm very, very happy for your love and support, although it feels like I did a lot of things, and which I did, but if I didn't have the audience, my listeners, which are you guys, I don't think I would have been able to make it this far. So I thank you each one of you. I sincerely appreciate your love and support. Michelle, Michael, Wade, Linda, and Timothy. Thank you so much, guys, for your love and support here. So let's actually deep dive into this conversation. So today's topic is the ultimate podcast sponsorship guide, and you would understand why I call it the ultimate guide. So before we move on, I want to clarify who this episode is for. Now, guys, I want to let you know, if you click on the three dots, if you're on your desktop or your mobile phone, there is a way to check the event page. If you click on the three dots, it goes to the event page. And if you scroll down under the comments, I actually have a PDF, which is in reference to the discussion which I am having. It's called as customer PDF with a microphone picture attached to it. So it's like a Google Drive link. I would highly recommend you to open this link on your phone, and you can follow through the discussion. You don't have to make notes. I have already done the legwork. You have everything with you. In fact, I'm perfectly okay with you downloading this as well, and using it for later on reference too. So it's customer PDF under the event comments. You should be able to find it. It has a microphone picture, the same theme picture which I have for the event cover page. All right, so who is this event exactly for, or who is this episode exactly for? So the ultimate guide is for podcasters who are serious about monetizing their content and they want to secure sponsorship for their show. Okay, now it does not matter if you are a seasoned podcaster like myself, or you're just starting out, or you're just procrastinating and thinking whether I should start or not. This guide can kind of give you an overview how to go about it, and the kit which I am selling along with it, it will provide you all the tools and resources which you need to attract and secure more sponsors and make your show more profitable. Because I think many people have this perception that podcasting is free. In a way, it is free, but it's ideally not free. Hi, Leslie. Hi-Fi. How are you? I think Leslie is driving,
Hello.
but how are you,
Hear me?
Leslie?
Hi, sorry about that. I'm here
That's
and
okay.
I'm
I
looking forward
appreciate you
to
being
today.
here. So let's actually continue. So as I was saying, so the kit is going to give you all the resources you need, and I'm going to explain you what are the resources I'm referring to. Okay, now the goal here is that we want to go from being broke as a podcaster. We want to move to bespoke, broke to bespoke. That's the hashtag which I'm using for this. Okay, now the goal behind doing this whole episode is because I want to sell the ultimate sponsorship kit. Okay, and I want to generate a passive income for myself, and that's the objective, and that's the whole idea behind doing this whole show, because I want to promote the kit. And I want to actually give out a disclaimer, first of all, is that the sponsorship kit and the release forms okay, which I would be speaking about, and the ones which are in the kit, is only intended to use as a starting point. It provides you guidelines to a podcaster while creating your own agreement, sponsorship agreement. But it's important to note that these contracts do not replace an expertise of a qualified lawyer. So I recommend personally that you should seek guidance. Okay, sorry about that. You should seek guidance and advice from a legal professional when you're drafting and finalizing a sponsorship agreement. But if you're managing it temporarily, if you're just doing it, just as a startup, you can just go ahead with what I'm offering you. If you need more complexity, if there are many layers to the sponsorship which you're offering, I would highly encourage you to have a lawyer look into it and draft it so that it meets the requirements which you have. So what I want to say is that monetization, the whole thing about monetization is actually very, very hard. And it's hard because of lack of knowledge, because people don't know, podcasters don't know how to identify these potential opportunities or reach out to potential sponsors. And they also don't know what kind of sponsorship would actually be best suitable for their content that the sponsor wants to promote. I also analyzed, there was a survey. I don't remember exactly what was the name of the survey, but it stated around 20 to 30% of podcasters who are actually doing podcasting really make money. The rest of them are just doing it just because they love it, admire it. There is no monetary benefit to it. Now, before we get into monetization and I give you all these snippets of what are the different kind of sponsorships, okay, different kind of sponsorship, I want to actually, I want you podcasters, if you are podcasters, you should ask a few questions to yourself first. So the first few questions you should ask yourself is, what is the purpose of your podcast? And what is your target audience? What category do you want to dominate in? This is a very detailed question, but it should give you a sense. You need to understand why you want to get into podcasts, what is the objective behind the podcast, who it is tailor-made and targeted to, and which category you want to dominate. So if you take my example, the purpose behind my podcast, whether you know it or no, I am trying to promote my design services. That is the ultimate purpose of my podcast. And I do this by attracting entrepreneurs, and I ask them to be on my show and I interview them to build strong relationship. I use relationship marketing as a medium to get to know the individual, try to understand their pain points, and offer my services as a solution if I can. I target an age group between 27 to 38, somewhere around this age group. And currently my listeners, 44% of them are entrepreneurs. Okay, and they follow under this category, this age group. The category, when I say category, I mean the type of the category you want to dominate. Some people do fictional things, some people do horror podcasts, some people might be just friends discussing things. Mine is on the business side of things. Why category is so important is because when you apply for awards, you need to fall under a certain category. Is it education? Is it mental health? Is it stuff like that? You can find information on different categories by going to any of these award websites. Okay, and they should be able to distill and give you different categories which are available. So when you curate a show in the beginning, it will be based on those categories. All right, so moving on. So the second question you should ask yourself, do I have a large enough target audience to attract sponsors? Or should you focus on growing your listener base first? Now, in the beginning, when I started my podcast, I did not really have a huge listener base. Okay, but I gradually was able to build it up. So if you're starting up, it's not necessary you would find sponsorship to be a right option, because when you speak to those sponsors, they will ask you questions. What kind of target market are you catering to? What kind of audience are you catering to? What is the focus of your show? How many listeners do you have? Stuff like that. And you would not have a good answer available. So I would recommend that hold on. Maybe you want to build up your network first. When I say network, like your listeners first, and then go on. Third question I think you can ask is, what kind of product or service would be a good fit for your podcast? and the audience which you're listening to, because not all businesses or products or services will be complementary to what you do. Okay, and it may not align with your mission, vision, and values as an organization or as an entrepreneur or as a business, whatever. So you want to ensure that it is a good fit. So try to find out, or maybe have a list of things which you feel would be a good fit, and accordingly pitch. Okay, now the best way to approach potential, you need to find out what would be the best way. Okay, you have to figure out the best way to approach potential sponsors, where to find them, and what would be their expectation. At least a generic idea how to go about it. So in my case, what I did is that rather than hunting for sponsors, I created a strategy where I do not allow outsiders to promote their business. I only allow my guests to promote their business, because I want to filter out the shit. I want to ensure that if I am supporting my guests, I truly believe in what they do, and I'm putting my credibility also in front to ensure that I truly firmly believe this individual is going to serve you and help you. So, it helps, if you get what I'm trying to say. If you have questions, guys, feel free to come up and just ask, okay? Because I'm this monologue and it's exhaustive just to keep on speaking. Okay, so next is that how much control do you want to give your sponsors over your content? Are you comfortable with the idea of promoting their services? Because some sponsors can be too demanding. They would want more and more, and you may not want to do it more, because at the end of the day, people are there not to actually listen to advertisement. They are here to actually support you and listen to your content. There has to be a healthy balance. Okay. You would also want to figure out, a pricing strategy, how to calculate the value you bring to the advertising space. So have like an idea, like what would be the cost, and how much do you want to charge your sponsor. It shouldn't be too much. It shouldn't be too less also. You should get what you're worth. You would also need to figure out how to track the success of your sponsorship, and you should be able to communicate these results to your sponsor. So as long as you're able to handle these administrative work, legal aspects of sponsorship, drafting contracts, sending invoices, obtaining all necessary release forms, these are all extra work which you would be doing over and above producing your show and uploading it. And sometimes it's possible that the ad copy which you're saying or playing, it may not come properly. You may have to re-record it, or you may have to edit it, change it. Those are all extra work which you would be doing. So be mindful about all these things. Next point which I want to say is that you want to ensure the quality of your content is always high while incorporating sponsorships, and try to see if you can actually make it interesting, so that the ad copy which is being played on your podcast does not really sound like an ad copy. And you may want to reach a certain point that your listeners are actually willing to listen to these AdWords, because they want to support you and they understand why you're doing it. It's for the success of the show, for the longevity of the show. So they would be inclined to listen and support you in that manner. So you want to build up that kind of audience. And the last thing I would say is that you need to figure out what is your long-term goal with monetization. Like how far do you want to go, and how does sponsorship would fit into these plans? So these are generic questions. Okay, now if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple, or like a pre-recorded version, if you're listening to it, you can pause and go back and you can hear it again and write those questions down, because I think this is really important before we get into sponsorship. Now, before you actually speak about sponsorship options to your sponsors, you may want to actually strategically ask them a few questions to understand where they fit in the equation. So now the next questions which I'm going to say right now are specifically focused towards your sponsors. Okay, so the first question to ask a sponsor is that, what is your overall marketing goal? I'm sorry about the background noise. That's just how India is in the evening. So what is your overall marketing goal? How do you see a podcast fitting into this strategy which we are planning to do? Very simple question, but that's going to give you a lot of insights how to go about it. Who is your target audience? How do you think sponsoring our podcast or my podcast will help you reach them? Okay, so in this way, you're trying to figure out whether this part, the sponsor is actually a good fit. It's also giving them the opportunity to evaluate whether your podcast is also a good fit. Okay, now you can also ask them another question is, have you sponsored a podcast before? And if so, what was your experience like? What kind of sponsorship has worked from you? You need to have a little data to understand and get more context. What was their experience like, so that you can either avoid such experiences, or you can ensure that we resolve all those issues and conflicts they had with previous podcasts. Okay. Fourth thing is, what kind of message do you want to convey to your audience through your sponsorship? Now, they might be dealing with multiple products or services. We want to ensure that it's been communicated in a way which will make sense to your audience. So try to dig that out from them. What are their intentions like? Okay, question number 5 is, what type of sponsorship arrangements would you be most interested in? Okay, just to get an overall idea. Is it pre-roll, mid-roll, post-roll? I know this might be new terms for you guys. I will be explaining it very soon on the show. Okay, and what would be the right way to go about it? So they will give you a general idea. Most of these sponsors would generally know what these terms are. Okay, and you would know exactly what to pitch in because they know what it works. Okay, 6th question would be, what is your budget for your podcast sponsorship? Another polite way of asking for budget is that how much would you be interested in spending for this particular campaign or sponsorship, whatever. A positive way of saying, what kind of return of investment, ROI, are you expecting to see by doing this? Are there any additional promotional opportunities like events he might be doing, social media mentions or giveaways which you might be interested in that also helps you to make more money? What kind of metrics would be used to evaluate the success of this advertisement campaign? Does our podcast mission, vision align with the value you have as an organization? Who is your target audience? How much control do you want to have when it comes being a sponsor? Do you have any other specific preferences? Stuff like that. I'm going to take a pause there and I'm just going to ask Leslie. Leslie, do you have anything you like to ask me with the whole questions I just spoke about?
I think you are just very thorough, and the advice that you're giving is really covering every spectrum of questions that we might have. I think eventually down the road, I would just ask a couple of questions on the, which is somewhat in the same realm of what we're speaking into, on microphone or things that we should know to make sure that we don't have issues with the volume, etc., controls. So yeah, keep going. Wonderful.
Absolutely. So guys, if you would have noticed initially Leslie's volume was low, but I was able to bump it up. I use a specialized equipment which can help me to increase volume of certain channels. Now, many podcasters actually use this. If you're becoming very serious and if you want to do something of this sort, these equipments do come really handy. If you want to know more information about those kind of equipments, I don't necessarily have any sort of package which I'm selling. I can maybe give you some guidance on how to go about it. Anyway, so moving to the PDF, guys. So if you have the PDF, okay, move into the slide which shows different types of podcast sponsorship. Okay, so the very first one is self-sponsored sponsorship. So what I am doing today is a self-sponsored sponsorship. So in this kind of sponsorship, the host promotes either his business or a product during the show. Okay, essentially the host is sponsoring themselves rather than sponsoring an external company or brand. Okay, now there are two ways of doing this. Okay, podcasters who have a business can promote their business or a product or service which they are offering. If you don't have a business and if you are a podcaster, what you can do is you can actually sell merchandise. Okay, t-shirts, mugs, whatever. You may have seen many YouTubers do this. They ask you to buy the stuff and support them. Some people also ask you to subscribe to Patreon and other kind of things. That's also another way. So that is self-sponsored sponsorship. This whole episode which I'm doing is self-sponsored because I'm trying to promote and sell the kit, the ultimate podcast sponsorship kit, which is for around $99. Okay. The second kind of sponsorship is pro bono sponsorship. So podcasting benefits are being divided into two segments. One helps you to make money, and the second one helps you to gain exposure. Pro bono sponsorship typically means that you are actually doing a favor as a podcaster to your family or friends. Okay, and what you're doing is you're promoting their business products or services on your podcast without expecting any payment or compensation in return. Okay, now this is typically done to support and help your loved ones without any commercial motives. So when I started my podcast, believe it or not, rather than me actually looking out for sponsors, I went ahead and I started promoting my friend's business, because what's the harm? Because they help you, they support you, they are the ones who are going to be listening to it. You might as well promote their business. Another advantage of doing this is that when you are promoting or sponsoring someone on the show, it kind of displays to potential sponsors that there is a segment available on your podcast for advertising. Okay, and that's what pro bono sponsorship is all about. All right, moving to the third one, it's called as pre-roll ads. Okay, now this is pretty industry standard, very simple to understand. This is something which is played at the beginning of the show. Okay, that is what is called as pre-roll. Okay, sometimes the duration can be around 15 to 30 seconds. Sometimes it can be 90 seconds. It depends. And there could be multiple placements of pre-roll within a podcast episode. The fourth one is called mid-roll. So as you understand by the word mid, so this is typically played between the 30 or 50% mark, depending upon the length of the show. Now, the reason why many people lean on to the mid-roll sponsorship is because that's when the audience is most engaged. Okay, that's when the retention level is the highest. So in my case, if you have been on my podcast or if you have heard it, you may have noticed I kind of do the sponsorship shout out right before Q&A. Because people are actually paying attention, because I'm bringing or inviting people up on stage. So they are alert the most. You make more money on a mid-roll in comparison to pre-roll. Okay, and there's the other one is called as post-roll, and again, less amount of money. Mid-roll is slightly better in comparison to pre and post. Okay, on post-roll, the ad placement is done towards the end of the show. Let me give you guys some context. I know Wade is a regular listener, so he knows what I'm trying to say. So if you notice, when I actually start my show in the beginning, I make a few announcements. Okay, because we're gonna having this guest, I have done this, stuff like that. In a way, that's pre-roll. Okay, that's what pre-roll is. I'm making an announcement. It's kind of an ad placement. It's not really an ad, but it's kind of. Mid-roll is where I actually play the ad. So it may sound something like this.
Fast track your success by becoming a world-class communicator.
Okay, it may sound something like this. So this is an ad placement. So mid ad placement, mid-roll. The last one, the post-roll, is basically when I'm going to be wrapping up my show. I would say that, guys, on my next show, okay, next week, we can expect this guest and this is going to be the topic. Now, I don't have an ad, but I have the exact same order when it comes to, leveling up these sponsors. So I hope that clarifies pre, mid, and post. Leslie, I want to make sure that, you get it. Is that making sense?
Yes, crystal clear.
All right. So moving on to the next one. Okay, now the next one is called as host-read ads. Okay, now you may have heard this on many podcasts. Very simple. So on host-read ads, you actually get paid, twice. One, is to read the ad, and you're using your voice, so you can charge them money to commercialize and use your voice. And the second is to actually have the ad placed in the podcast, so you make money twice. Okay, so pretty much it's very self-explanatory. The host is actually reading, the ad copy on the podcast. One of the reasons why a sponsor would be interested in asking you to read it, because it comes more authentic. Okay, it makes the audience feel that the host also believes in the product, and so they would be inclined onto that direction. Second reason why a sponsor might lean on to this direction is because they probably don't have the resources, the recording equipments or stuff like that to actually conduct and get this done by themselves. And that's why they would expect you to do it. Maybe it's a small business just starting up, and they don't have all the mic and other stuff available. Stuff like those are the only possibilities which I can think of when it comes to host read ads. Okay. The seventh one is called as a sponsored segment. Okay, and I like you guys to actually pay attention to this specific one a lot, because let me explain. Okay, so every podcast has a structure. Okay, it's like a skeleton of the show. Okay, in my case, the skeleton of the show or the structure is the start of my show is a show introduction. That's one. Second segment, or the structure is basically known as segments, by the way, guys. So the first segment of my show is called as show, introduction. The second segment of my show is, guest introduction. The third segment of my show is guest interview. The fourth segment of my show is shout outs to advertisement, or the fifth segment is Q&A, so on and so forth. I think you guys get a general idea. It's basically how the show is structured and positioned overall, within that 60, 90 or 45 minute duration. Okay, now what a sponsor does here, rather than actually doing a pre-roll, mid-roll or post-roll, because that's what everybody does, here the sponsor actually says that I want to actually sponsor just a segment of what you do. So in my show's case, the listeners' question and answer round would be an ideal place for a sponsor to go and use it as an ad placement. So I would be like, today's question and answer round is being sponsored by East West Functional Training LLC. Okay, now you might be wondering, why would somebody sponsor just a segment and not do pre-roll, mid-roll and post-roll? Okay, reason being is because one, okay, the topic of the conversation, okay, will be very, very complementary to the product or service the sponsor is trying to pitch. Second reason, when you're actually sponsoring a segment of the show, you automatically stand out as a sponsor, because wouldn't you actually remember a show segment being sponsored by a sponsor, okay, rather than just me just playing an ad. Okay, so those are two reasons. And then it is also possible a sponsor might actually say that, yeah, I want to actually do a segment, but it may not have any sort of connection with the topic at all. Now, in such cases, you would hear the term used by most podcasters that this segment is brought to you by so-and-so company. The motivation behind a brand to actually do this without any connection to the topic is just to leverage over the credibility of the podcast host and the listeners. They kind of want to generate more awareness or create more exposure for their brand. The third reason why somebody would actually go ahead and do this, okay, would be okay, give me a sec. Okay, the third reason why would somebody do it is because the company, the sponsor, kind of really believes in the mission and value you have as a podcast host, and they just want to be associated. A good example would be podcasts. Let's say a podcast is related to sustainability. Okay, now it makes sense that a company who is into sustainability is to support this podcast, even if they don't sell it, but it's kind of something which they want to do, and they believe in it. They want to support and help the environment, stuff like that. So I hope that makes sense. Leslie, is that making sense, or am I complicating it too much? All right. So Leslie is away from her phone. So anyway, let's move on. So let me give you some examples of what would be certain segments, because I just don't want to use my podcast just as an example. I can think of segments like tip of the week. Let's ask let's ask who is an expert. So my show interviews guests who are expert, but there is a possibility some podcast would be just a monologue just by itself. Okay, and they may have a small section called ask an expert person, and they might ask somebody to just pop in and just speak on this. So that is another segment. Product review. Some podcasters do product review within segments. Some podcasters like myself have question and answer. Some have rapid fire questions, and some have behind the scenes segment. These are all different segments which exist out there. Depending upon what the sponsor is trying to achieve, you can tailor it and customize it and get things taken care of. Okay, I'm going to take a pause there. I'm just going to invite, ask some people to show up because I want to take a sip of water. Wait, why don't you come up? Leah, Michelle, anybody, please raise your hand. Please come up, help me out. All right, bringing Wade up. All right, Wade, nice to see you. How are you, my friend?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever everybody is. I'm wonderful, thank you.
I'm so happy.
It's been a fantastic show today.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. So Wade, I want to ensure that, the information is loaded, but, it's not overwhelming to people. So I want to take a pause so that people can process it. By any chance, did you get access to the PDF? Were you able to scroll through it as we speak?
I have not as of yet, but I'm sure if it's anything like what you've been verbalizing today, it's very concise and keen.
Awesome. Do you have any questions so far with the different level of sponsorships which are out there?
No, I think it more than anything else, as far as it's just getting out of one's comfort zone and making sure that they're asking the questions, both in the aspect of asking what their the possible sponsor is looking for, so that way everything is understood on both ends, and also as far as asking basically to get paid. What are you willing to pay for sponsoring this program?
Absolutely.
That's key.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people, I think they, especially in the beginning of all of this, are very hesitant to ask for payment, or, and they're just wanting to get people to get on board. So they're willing to give it away for free. And, if the content that you're going to be podcasting is valued, then, you should be paid likewise.
I totally agree. Hi, Leslie. I think you are in a zone where the connection keeps dropping
I'm
off.
here. Yeah,
Do you have any questions?
my Wi-Fi is, but I'm back. No, I don't have any questions. I'm just really ingesting all of this, and you've done an amazing job with taking the time to really have something really. Sorry about that. I just broke up.
That's cool. So just in case if you have just joined the conversation, click on the 3 dots on the event, the live audio which is happening on LinkedIn if you are, and you should be able to find a PDF document called customer PDF with a microphone picture on it. Follow through what I am saying using that presentation. This is your copy. Download it, keep it with you, utilize it. I have no issues. I have created it for you. It has an overview of all the information which I'm speaking on. Okay, so next level of sponsorship is called as branded content. Now, branded content is one of the most expensive monetary sponsorships you can actually sell. It's very simple. The whole objective behind a branded content sponsorship is to promote the sponsor's product or services. Now, this could be done in a variety of ways. One way of doing it is to have a series of episodes. So not just 1 or 2, there would be many. And the podcast host will explore the sponsors industry, try to figure out the features and benefits of all their products and services. It might include research. So the whole objective here is to just create more brand awareness and to have a very tailor focused show towards the sponsor. Now you might be wondering, why would people invest in this? Okay, now there are many companies who are out there who kind of require an introduction, and what they would do is, if not the show, if not the actual show, they might hire this podcaster so that they can leverage on the credibility of the podcaster, and the podcaster will bring a certain kind of audience to the sponsor as well. So they might have an independent show by themselves, and they would utilize the podcast host to make it happen. Okay, so that's what branded content is. So you're tailor-made and you're focused specifically on the brand, and you're trying to create content which revolves around the brand. And the sponsor is expected to give you all the resources required for you to produce an amazing show. The ninth type of sponsorship which is out there is called as affiliate marketing. Okay, affiliate marketing is very simple. So let's say that Leslie is a podcaster. So I would approach Leslie and I'll let her know that, Leslie, why don't you sell my podcast kit to your clients or people, who are your listeners? And what we can do is we can actually have a commission structure designed in a way that you also make money and I also make money both. So that's called as affiliate marketing. You join hands like a collaborative thing, and you make a commission. Okay, so that's what it is. Sell and make money, and it just makes everyone happy. Okay, another way of looking at affiliate marketing is a sponsor reaches you and tells you that I don't want to actually invest money directly for paying ads. I want to test the water out. And you tell them, okay, why don't you do affiliate marketing with my show? Okay, I would play your ad. Whenever you make a sale, I make a commission out of it. So in this way, the sponsor does not really take a lot of risk. So you can either offer both these options. One, to collaborate, network, and you can do affiliate marketing. And the second option is just to make a decent commission. And you can have like a promo code or something which your listeners would specifically use. In this way, you can find out how many hits you have received. I have one sponsor on my show, which you heard just a while back, or you may have heard it on previous episode. That's based on a commission structure. Whenever a package is being sold, I make a commission out of it. I hope that helps. Leslie, is that confusing? Are you with me? I keep asking her, even though she's traveling.
I'm here. No, I'm here. No, nothing is confusing. I think you have broken up in various steps beautifully how to really understand all the different concepts. So keep going.
All right. Let's move on. So the next one is the 10th one. It's called as topical discussion sponsorship. Okay, now topical discussion sponsorship is where a sponsor would provide a podcast host a list of topics they want to discuss. They might work collaboratively with the host to develop content which aligns with the sponsor goals. So the sponsor would provide expertise, resources. They would also recommend the people whom they expect or want to be interviewed on the show, and they will provide you all the information about them. So the word itself is very self-explanatory. It's about creating content which is very tailor-made to the sponsor but revolving around a topic. To give you an example, a company that produces eco-friendly cleaning products, may sponsor a podcast which speaks about sustainability. So in a topical discussion, the sponsor would provide the podcast a list of topics related to green cleaning, or often an interview with an expert who is a sustainability expert, and that's how they create content. They might also create videos demonstrating how the product works, how it benefits, and how they are applying all these sustainable practice in what they do. I hope that makes sense. So that's what is topical discussion sponsorship. The next one is called as a round table sponsorship. Round table. Okay, so very simple. From the word itself, you may have known like a brief idea. This kind of sponsorship is where the sponsor is funding or giving resources for a podcast episode which has a panel discussion or a roundtable format. Now, this can be done in two ways. You may have seen many podcast hosts when there's not just one host, but there are a group of hosts, and they would be just having a discussion. So a sponsor might go ahead and ask all these hosts to do to do a roundtable sponsorship and discuss on a specific topic, and they will provide them the resources, studio time, equipment, fees, stuff like that to make it happen. There is also a possibility that rather than having podcast hosts and co-hosts doing these roundtable sponsorship, the sponsor might say, these are the list of people I want to be interviewed on your show, and here is a list, and let's have like a panel. You may have seen this on YouTube, a group of people sitting around multiple mics and having this conversation. So a sponsor would actually do this. Now you might be wondering, what is the motivation behind doing all of this? So this allows the sponsor to position themselves as an expert or a thought leader in a specific industry. Okay, by having all these audience, the sponsor can voice out and feature themselves as an influencer, help them to get more credibility towards their brand, and in the process get more eyeballs. Now remember, when you're actually doing this kind of sponsorship, because there are multiple people involved, you need two kind of release forms. The first release form is called as a co-host release form, which gives you access and permission to use the co-host voice their opinions on your show without having any later on regrets. And a guest release form. These are basically for guests. So one release form for each guest, so that tomorrow, if they decide to go back with their opinion, your show does not get impacted. So these are two release forms, and I will be getting into release forms very soon once I finish this section. So I want to take a pause there and just ask Wade. Wade, are you following up? Is that making all sense? Is it confusing? Are we all with me? Are you all with me?
We are with you. I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt Wade, but I'd like to know which one is the most popular form of sponsorship that you see more often with podcasters that are just starting out.
Okay, so I think the most popular is mid-roll. Okay, because it's been there for a really long time. And I think affiliate marketing would be the second. So playing an ad right in between of the show is the most desired one. And and affiliate marketing, because it's less risk. This is what is common. But certain podcasters may make tailor-made things, because some companies do have a certain expectation. They have an agenda, and they would pay you huge. I'm talking about thousands and thousands of dollars they would chip in if you're willing to work with them. After a certain point, I mean, if you want to explore that route, please do not hesitate, because that's going to bring you more money. Does that answer your question, Leslie, or do you have anything as a follow-up?
No, absolutely. Especially with some people that might be listening that are just starting out, or have, like me, I'm really laser focused as to the guests that I'll be having. And I'm in the sustainable, eco-friendly, clean living arena. So I can now focus on who I would be going after maybe to sponsor. And the other quick question is, someone that might want to know, how are we going to reach out to these people? Do we go to events that are held to have a rapport, just to physically meet these people instead of being in our virtual world? And that was the other question I had.
Lovely question. The best way to approach them is to have them on your show as a guest. That's the most easiest thing which you can do, because everyone likes to speak about themselves. Having them on the show will give them the leverage so that you would get to know the individual a lot more. And before the show and after the show, offline, you guys can have a general discussion about the show. How is your business running? What is happening? What are your pain areas? I'm just curious. I do this. I was wondering what is happening. And build a relationship around it. And occasionally do let them know that if they are interested, this is the target group I'm going ahead with. This is my niche and this is what I offer. Would you be interested interested in sponsoring it. And I'm positive, some of those individuals would say yes, and some of them would say no. And I've learned this from Chris, though. I don't know if you guys follow this designer, big fan of him. He says no stands for next opportunity. No does not mean actual no. Next opportunity. I hope that answers your question, Leslie.
That's excellent. That is great advice. And I think a lot of us can really gain some value from that, because it really is difficult to try to figure out and navigate, especially if you're monetizing in another area with public speaking. So at the end of the day, this is like a side note of what I do, having the guests on, and love that idea of possibly getting somebody on that can sponsor you. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Wade, I just want to make sure that I'm addressing you too. Wade, do you have any questions or comment?
No, absolutely. As far as actually, thank you, Leslie, for kind of being a wing lady for me. I was downloading at the time, and so or as far as the PDF, so I could follow along, and I couldn't get back to the screen to be able to unmute myself at the time. No, you're spot on as far as you're laser focused, and that's where exactly what you need to be as far as when you're going and looking for sponsors. You have to know, you have to actually come to them with almost basically a proposal as far as asking them what they want, but also, knowing beforehand what you think that they want. So you have to identify, uh, you know, what their goals would be and be able to come to them with an actual prospectus of exactly what it is you think that you're able to supply to them as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Guys, if you're enjoying this conversation, please do not hesitate to share this. Follow me, follow all my friends. Even my podcast. If you're interested in knowing more about my podcast, you can find it under the event comments, Spotify link, Apple links. It has my beautiful picture on it. Follow it. Follow those podcast links and show me some love and support. I would really, really appreciate it. Now, just in case, if you do like hearing more about the kit, and if you want to actually buy this kit, just DM me the word ultimate, ULTIMAT, on LinkedIn, Clubhouse, or wherever you are, Instagram. My handle is pretty much the same. Just reach out to me over email also. Anything would work. And I would be happy to send you information about it, how to go about securing it. It's $99, not too expensive. I think it's really worth the amount of time I invested just to curate all of this. And we are not even halfway in. There are even more layers. So the next one, which is out there, it's called as creative integration sponsorship. It also has a high dollar value to it. That means whenever you hear a sponsor speaking about this means dollars. I'm talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So in this integration, okay, the podcast may create custom content or series of episodes highlighting the sponsor's brand or product in a unique and memorable way. Now, this part is very, very crucial, a unique and memorable way. How it is done, sometimes a podcaster might create like a fictional story, a skit, that incorporates the sponsor's brand and product. They might create quiz, games, make it seem like very, very natural, and it allows the audience to interact with the sponsor's brand in a fun and engaging way. The sponsors will most likely provide you resources to make this happen. They will give you access to their creative team, their marketing team. They'll give you with their branding stuff so that you can utilize. You can brainstorm on ideas. The objective here is to create an experience. Okay, now let me give you some examples. Let's say it's a health food company who wants to promote their line of protein bars. Rather than just playing traditional ads, what a podcast host with this level of sponsorship might do is that they would create a game or a quiz related to healthy eating or healthy snacking habits. Let's say snacking habits. And whoever wins receives the sponsor's protein bar as an answer, like a prize. Okay, a very interesting way of positioning it, and it does not feel like a forced ad. And they should be, the audience would be able to engage, understand what it is. Okay, is it a good product, bad product, whatever, a fun and nice way. Let me give you another example. Let's say it's a travel company, and they want to sell their new line of vacation packages which they have launched. Okay, so in this way, typically, you know it will be like an ad placement, but the creative side, okay, whoever goes ahead with this sponsorship, okay, might collaborate, okay, with a podcast host, and think of creating like a dream travel destination, let's say an actual game. Okay, and what the podcast host would do is, the podcast host may describe a location, the scenery, and would ask listeners to guess where this location is. Okay, he might send snippets of pictures on their post, on their Instagram feed or on their video feed, like a puzzle, and they would ask people just to guess it. And whoever wins might get a discount on this package. I hope that makes sense. It's just a creative way. You have to use your brains and come up with a creative way of marketing and selling it. That's what creative integration is. Because you're using your intelligence and brains to make it happen, that's why you get more money here. Okay, and there are businesses out there who is looking for that kind of creativity. If your podcast reaches that scale and level, you would be allowed to explore that route. Okay, now I know that example may be a little loaded. I just want to make sure that Thomas, I appreciate you joining the conversation. Were you able to follow up on that? Did that make sense?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Jason, and congratulations on all your great work to date. I had one question, but
Absolutely. Please go ahead.
So it relates to, obviously, you've put a really good package together of information, and for someone like myself who knows nothing about sponsorship, it's a good introduction to how the whole thing kind of works. I had one question for you. Have you engaged with any other podcasters that you've looked up to over the last 6 months or a year or whatever, in your venture? And have you ever thought about doing it, or have you actually done it?
When you say booked up, as in like a collaboration?
No, not collaborate, as in, literally contacted, one that's established and said, hey, my name's Jaison Thomas, I'm just starting out. Can I have 5 minutes of your time, sort of thing?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I get a lot of emails about people asking to be guests on the show. I mean, other than that,
yeah, yeah. So it's I get another question. So, like, if I look up to someone like a future mentor, or if I think someone's a really good person, like an entrepreneur, then I'll go out of my way to try to contact them. So, for example, if I think Richard Branson is a cool dude, and I want to know more about him, curious about him, then I'd try to do anything I did do to contact him to get 5 minutes with him.
Yeah, honestly, I have not.
Or is it too hard?
Honestly, I have not received anybody looking for mentorship or asking me to do stuff. Maybe I have not actually pitched in that yet. Maybe I will try to do another show which explains how to go about podcasting. But yeah.
It was just, if you get a chance and you ever if you might not have heard of him, or you might have, but Stephen Bartlett, have you heard of him, the English guy?
No, not really.
So he's probably he's the ultimate in podcasters. He runs a weekly kind of show, and he interviews all these really interesting people. So it's like, it's probably you on steroids kind of thing.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Look him
very,
up
very
one
much.
day when you're on holidays or vacation. Look him up and have a listen to one of his podcasts, because it's really, really interesting.
Absolutely, I will do that, Thomas. I appreciate your contribution there. So let me actually move on. So the next one which I want to highlight is sponsorship number 13th, is a giveaway or like a contest sponsorship. Very simple. Now, if a sponsor is trying to offer free samples anyway to a group of people, why not actually give it to a very targeted audience? Okay, so that would be the motivation behind a sponsor looking at this as an alternative. So they might, they would be aligned. The audience which the podcaster is catering to would be something they want to tap into, and they would reach out to these podcast hosts, offer them this option. Can you go ahead and do this as a giveaway? Okay, for somebody to takes certain amount of steps like leave a review, okay, put a post, tag us, stuff like that. Okay, we can give and we can offer them like a giveaway, or it can be a contest also, wherein like they play a game and they have to do some sort of activities. I think you guys get the idea. Giveaway or contest sponsorship. Let me just read it out once again. It's in a giveaway or a contest sponsorship, the podcast may offer a prize or prizes to the audience in exchange for their participation. For example, a podcast may ask listeners to share the podcast on social media, leave a review, or answer a question related to the sponsor's brand or product in order to be entered into the contest or giveaway. I hope that makes sense. I'm sorry I mixed it up. I didn't have my whole notes completely ready with that specific sponsorship. So I hope that makes sense. Moving on to the next one is guest interview sponsorship. Now, many people who actually hear this, they misunderstand this concept. So guest interview sponsorship does not mean that a guest has to pay to be on your show. In a guest interview sponsorship, the podcast host may invite a guest to be interviewed on their show, and a sponsor provides funding to cover the guest fees or expenses. So the guest may have a certain fee or an expenses or travel, whatever they have to do, and the sponsor funds it. Now, the motivation behind the sponsor to actually do this is because of the guest credibility, and they want to use their influence and credibility to have a better leverage to promote their brand to a wider audience. And the sponsor would expect the guest to endorse them in some way or the other. That's why you would do this. It's not about a guest paying X amount of dollars to be on a podcast show. You may have heard many podcasters doing it. Trust me, this is not fair and this is not right. So if you are a guest and if you want to be on a podcast, you don't have to actually pay any money. It's supposed to be content focused and authentic. Nobody has to pay anything to be a guest on the show. Okay, you may have to join a wait list like mine, that's another thing. But other than that, there is nothing. But there's also something called as a sponsored guest appearance. That's the one which I was speaking about. So if somebody want to be on your show and you don't necessarily have a slot, you can ask them to join the wait list. That's one. Or rather than offering, charging them for this, instead offer them a sponsored segment. Ask an expert offer that segment, or offer them branded content sponsorship or creative integration as an alternative. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Rather than offering asking the guest to pay to be featured on a show, offer them a segment or offer them branded content wherein you do a couple of episodes, or a creative integration wherein you creatively come away because they want to promote and leverage and position their brand in the marketplace, using your services. So come up with a creative way just to help them out. Okay, but do not pay anything to be a guest. Okay, my advice. Okay, so the next one is called as review sponsorship. Review sponsorship is very simple. Some episodes may have a segment, like I said previously, in their show to review a product or service. So some podcasters may review products or services within that segment, or some of them may do just a short episode, and the sponsor funds all the resources for them to get the product, stuff like that. Sometimes it would be provided for free, and sometimes it might be at a discounted rate. And sometimes even they ask for the product back post the review. So it all depends, what kind of objective the sponsor has. Okay, now as a podcaster, you're recommended to offer your unbiased review about the sponsor product, but some people, do get carried away when they see the money. So, I mean, this is the part of how things work. One of the most expensive level of sponsorship which you can ever get is called as a brand ambassadorship. Okay, so a brand ambassador sponsorship is a kind of a sponsorship where a podcast host or a guest on a podcast becomes an ambassador for a sponsor's brand. And the ambassador promotes the sponsor's brand or services to an audience on mediums like social media posts, blog posts, podcast episodes, stuff like that. Okay, so it can either be you as a host or it can be the guest. If it is the guest, if the sponsor is actually promoting a guest as a brand ambassador, okay, you would not be making money, but you will be getting a lot of exposure. If a sponsor want you to be a brand ambassador, you would be making a lot of money and you would also be getting exposure. That's the difference. Let me give you some context with examples. So a company that sell fitness supplement may partner with a health and fitness podcast host and become a brand ambassador for their product. And what the podcast host would be expected to do is to talk about their products during the podcast episode, promote them on social media channel, have it in their background if they are doing video, or speak about it, mention about it, during the show that I'm an advocate for this specific product. I would encourage you to go ahead and try this out. Okay, that's what is brand ambassadorship, one of the most expensive options which is out there. Okay, and for a guest, okay, it's the influence they bring. I hope that makes sense. The next kind of sponsorship is called as the influencer sponsorship. Very simple. Okay, here, okay, rather than you getting paid, okay, the influencer get paid. Okay, just to clarify, you're not going to get paid in terms of dollar value. You will be paid in terms of exposure, and you will pay money to an influencer. Why? Because the influencer will help you to gain more exposure towards your podcast, and you need to have an agreement between the influencer so that they bring more eyeballs to you and you grow as a podcast host. Not all kind of sponsorships are monetary based. Some of them is just exposure based. So influencer sponsorship is based on that. I'm just going to read out a little description of what it is, so that you might, if I miss something. Influencer sponsorship is a podcast in podcasting involves collaboration between a podcast host and an influencer who promotes the podcast to their audience in exchange for compensation. Okay, the main goal here is to help the podcast gain more exposure. The influencer may be a social media personality, a blogger, or another type of content creator with a significant amount of following. I hope that makes sense. So you do get a lot of exposure or a lot of money through this medium. Okay, the next one which is out there is product placement. And product placement would be the last kind of sponsorship option. So the objective here is that when you actually watch a movie, you would actually see scenes of brand being endorsed or product placements which are done very naturally within the scenery. When you're a podcaster, because it's audio only, there's fairly some limitations as to what you can do. If you do video, then yes, having the product in the background, or having a scenery with the product or imagery around would make sense. But not all podcasts would be video specific. Some of these podcasts, like myself, would be very audio. Okay, so what a podcaster would do is a podcaster would naturally try to integrate the product while having a conversation. So you may have noticed many podcasters speaks about specific brands, and I'm just giving you an example: Nike, Apple, Google. Some of these folks would be paid to do it, and some of them would not be. and some of these endorsements would be just voluntarily. Okay, that's called as product placement sponsorship. So if you have a sponsor reach out to you and they want a natural and seamless way of their product to be integrated, this is the best sponsorship to go ahead with. You do make quite a decent amount of money, not as as big as a brand ambassadorship or the what's the other one, the branded one, stuff like that, but at least it's still decent enough. Okay, so that's what the different level of sponsorships is all about. I'm going to take a pause there, and I'm going to open up the space for Q&A. So we will start with Wade and then Thomas and Leslie. So Wade, do you have a question so far before we move on to release forms?
No, you've been very crystal clear and very insightful, and it's been easy to follow along on your PDF. Thank you so much, Jaison.
Absolutely, absolutely. What about you, Thomas?
No, I'm good. Thank you. I'll wait for the main Q&A.
All right. So, I mean, if you're wondering what is a PDF, Wade spoke about, it's under the event comments. You should be able to find customer PDF. It's a document which I have actually designed for you guys. It has a microphone picture on it. Just download it and use it as a reference point of this discussion. It's your copy. You don't have to pay me any money. Even if you just use the resource, you'd never have to buy my kit. It pretty much has everything. My kit just gives you the contracts and the release forms which are required to execute it. That's the only difference. If anybody is interested in acquiring that kit, please DM me Ultimate, and I would be happy to help you with the kit. And it's a lifetime access. So if I make any updates and if there are any more kind of sponsorship which get launched, I'll just upload it on the drive so that you can get access to it. So moving on is that, along with sponsorship kits, you also need to have a general idea of release forms. These release forms helps you to save your ass, in simple words. So the first one is employee release forms. Okay, this form grants you permission to a podcaster to use the employee appearance or interview in their podcast. He might or she might be a part of your team, but you would be commercializing on it. Whenever you make money, everybody wants a piece of the pie. Okay, and you want to protect your podcast or your business from it. That's why you have the employee release form. All these release forms which I'm speaking about is being tailor-made only for podcasting. You can't use it for anything else. Okay, second, if you have a graphic designer, okay, or a graphic designer who produces artwork and those kind of stuff, you also need another release form for them so that they don't claim this is their work and create complications for you in the long run. Save yourself. If I'm a designer, I'm helping you with your podcast, you need to give me a release form. I fill in all my details, sign it, and give you a copy, just to safeguard yourself. If you're interviewing guests, if you remember, you also need to get a release form for your guests so that you can utilize their voice, appearance, and you reuse their content without they having any concerns or issues. If you're recording yourself, recording the podcast at a very specific location or venue, you need to actually get a location release form from the person who actually owns that property or that studio, so that they don't have any legal objections about you utilizing, recording the space and banking upon that. So that's how you save your ass again. You need a location release form. If you're interviewing somebody who is a minor, again, you need a release form. I got you covered. I have a release form for a minor below 18 years old. Okay, if you're using, let's say that, you came across a band while you're at the bar and you found this band very interesting and you were like, can you guys play a song for me on my podcast, like an intro thing, and you guys shake hand. You need a music release form so that you can use it, so that the person who created the music does not have any sort of claims or issues or creates havoc or chaos for you in the long run. Protect yourself. On the other hand, the music which you heard in the beginning of the show, which I play, those are licensable song which I buy. Okay, when you buy such music, you actually get a license to use. Okay, and whenever there are objections or claims which pop up, because Spotify do sends out legal notices, not legal notices, but copyright claims. YouTube does that very often, copyright claims. And by having a license copy, you can just post the license copy, copy paste it, and you're all cleared. It does not affect or impact your channel. You don't want one copyright, you don't want copyright issues to mess up your whole content vibe and screw your whole show up. Protect yourself. If it's a videographer or somebody who is taking photographs, you may have noticed that many podcasters do take pictures of their guest before actually doing the show. They may have like a whole setup. So you need to get a release form from the photographer so that you can you can use those pictures on your show, whether you make money or no, but you have to do it. Even if it's a videographer, you also need to take consent from a videographer to utilize and use their video as a part of your podcast. Now, if a sponsor specifically wants you to actually use like a logo or any sort of intellectual property, you also need to have a release form for that. It ensures that all those things are being protected and you're getting consent to use it, because if tomorrow if there is any objection, you have the release form to back you up. On the other hand, if you hire a voiceover artist, maybe as a podcaster you may not have the right voice or it does not match the right tone a sponsor wants, you probably would be interested in hiring somebody to do a voiceover and say the ad copy for a sponsor on behalf of a sponsor. You need to have a release form for that so that they give you permission to use their work, which is their voice, so that you can commercialize or non-commercialize, make money or not make money. But you need this release form for sure, just to safeguard and protect yourself. So those are the 10 release forms which I've created. So in total, I have around 20 contracts and 10 release forms which I have created as a kit. And this kit is known as the Ultimate Podcast Sponsorship Kit. So I'm going to open up the space for Q&A. I see 3 of my cool friends on Clubhouse. Natasha, so nice to see you. If you don't know Natasha is one of those individuals who have been supporting me from the day one. When my podcast started back in January of 2022. So I love you, Natasha. Thank you so much for your consistent love and support. I see Alma on Clubhouse, and I see my good friend Simon. And if anybody else wants to join this conversation, please do not hesitate. Please raise your hand and you're welcome to come up. So Simon, thank you so much for joining. Do you have a question, anything specifically you would like to ask me about the topic of discussion today?
I've come in a little bit late, I'm afraid, Jason, but I'm just looking at your customer PDF, the Ultimate Podcast Sponsorship Guide. This looks really, really interesting. I'm definitely going to have to check this out.
No worries, Simon. No worries at all. Please have a look, and if you do have any sort of doubts, do not hesitate to reach out to me and just let me know. I would be happy to clarify your doubts. If you're interested in securing the kit, DM me the word Ultimate. I would be happy to help you out. It's like a one-stop solution. You would never have to be afraid of what kind of sponsorship options you want to go ahead with. Okay, so let me go ahead with Wade. Wade, do you have a question for me by any chance?
Nope. It's been a pretty easy day today. Thank you, Jason.
Absolutely. All right, how about you, Thomas?
No, look, only that it's been quite insightful, and now I know. When I watch the Australian Open tennis, I know all about sponsorship, which is pretty well embedded in their platform, because they do these fun and game things on ads during the tennis, and they do a lot of product placement and all sorts of things. So now I can put it in a more look at it in a more intelligent way. So thank you, and thanks again.
Absolutely. Leslie, do you have any questions you'd like to ask me?
Yeah, there are 2 things that popped up. First of all, I think you just hit the nail on the head when you were saying um, uh, the fact that you could be as creative as you want to be. There's so many various ways of being endorsed, sponsorships. Um, and when you mentioned about covering your tushy or your butt, um, what came to mind was when I have health and wellness lectures, or I'm podcasting and I have somebody on in the health and wellness realm. I always preface the fact that, seek medical advice, somebody that is an MD. So the conversation that we are discussing um, is so people don't take it literally, like that they say, oh, well, I have to go out and get these supplements and then I kill, I had heart palpitations because you mentioned it. So you always have to cover your butt by saying seeking, advice of a professional. But the other quick question was, or yeah, this is the question. What are your thoughts about, I follow Dr. Mark Hyman, Dr. Perlmutter, people that are in the functional realm. And their podcasting is great, but I'm sick and tired of listening to all these commercials, the endorsements, and that takes up about the first 5 minutes of conversation before they even get to the topic that we want to listen to with the guest. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I personally hate it, and that's why you don't see me having any ad placements in between. So, if I see, the whole idea is to have the content as rich, offer a rich experience as possible. Do it, but don't overdo it. It just appears to be very greedy. So I would say that have a healthy balance. Now, if you really want people to serve, not serve, but you want them to admire and like you as a host, and you may be offering good value, I would recommend that have an ad-free version of your show and ask people to pay for it. So in this way, that would compensate for the number of ads which you are actually overdoing on your show just to live by. And because it does cost money to produce this whole thing, it's not cheap. It is expensive. So yeah, I mean, does that answer your question? What do you think? I personally don't listen to shows which has too many ads in the beginning. I just skip it. Either move forward or I just don't hear it.
Yeah, interesting. But the people that I really do like, they do have a wealth of information. They have done a lot of groundbreaking research in the field of functional medicine. So you grin and bear it, you listen to it, and you just get through it. Or I just, fast forward to where I want to listen to. But I think that's just the way that the beast is. It just is. This is the way it goes when they become more popular and they have more people listening in and they need to monetize, so I somewhat understand, but it gets annoying. But yes, thanks for answering my question.
Yeah, absolutely. It would get annoying. I mean, it annoys me also personally. I personally feel that, maybe some of these folks might be sticking to the same pricing structure which they originally started, and they may not be increasing it. So if you are a podcaster, if you're getting the momentum and traction, it's okay to ask your sponsors to pay more because you have better leverage, you have more audience. So my fan following was, let's say, 5,000. I have increased that to 10,000 now. So guys, you're getting at least 5,000 more. So I mean, it is fair to ask you to pay more. In this way, you can cut down the number of sponsors you have. You can have a better clean show and still get paid the same amount of money. Then you can follow the same thing which you suggested, creative integration. Come up with a creative way to position the ad which resonates with the topic and makes it interesting. It will be a little extra work for the sponsor as well as for the host, because you have to do all those extra layer of editing. But I think it is going to be worth it because you are keeping the end user in mind, the listener. You are empathetic to the end user and you want to ensure that it's a nice streamlined show. It's a fun show. It's an engaging show. Okay, let me ask you. I want to ask you an honest question, to all of the people who are on stage. When you actually hear me speak about my show, the people I'm going to be interviewing, and the stuff which is happening, do you get bored? Let's start with Wade.
Generally speaking, no, because the guests that you bring on for each particular episode, you know, their subject matter is so interesting, and they're experts in their fields. So, we're all here to learn something new, and so I love the diverse subject matter that you bring on board.
I appreciate that very, very much, Wade. But I was just wondering, before I introduce the guest, there's a small section wherein I'm just self-promoting myself. I just speak about the stuff which is going on, what I'm about to do, what is expected to happen, stuff like that in general. What do you feel when you hear all of that? Does it get annoying at times?
No, because it is insightful as far as to let people know what's coming up, so uh, they know what to look forward to in this segment and the upcoming segments, so they can schedule whatever their calendar is for that next event.
Awesome, awesome. Let's hear Thomas' thoughts on this.
Look, I think self-promotion is obviously a necessary part of the whole thing, and I think you do it, with the right amount of emphasis. So, if you went on about it for like 10 minutes straight, then obviously the listener would be getting a bit bored, and they'd want to get to the meat of the subject. But no, look, I think it's all contextual, and I think obviously I don't know how long you speak for about it, but I don't think it's overkill. And I think the other thing is it leads in. I mean, obviously you've got a recipe which you stick to each time, and now I'm kind of, because I've listened to it for a significant number of times, I know exactly, mm, the sort of well, not the recipe, but the agenda, I guess. And the best thing from a feedback point of view is the introductory spiel about the person and their background, and when they talk about their background before they talk about what they're doing now. I think that's so insightful, because you're talking about a person that's grown from X to Y, and you can hear that transformation. So, but yeah, in terms of, I don't get sick of hearing your voice. I mean, you do obviously talk a lot, but it's all contextual.
I appreciate that very, very much, Thomas. So people on Clubhouse, if you might be wondering where you're hearing this voice from, it's on LinkedIn. So we are actually doing a group live, LinkedIn and Clubhouse combined. So let's actually hear from Leslie. So Leslie, what are your thoughts? What do you feel? And you can be honest and tell me, whether it gets annoying, not annoying. How do you feel it's been positioned so far?
Well, I come from another approach because I did it. I really took a deep dive with a focus group of people in my as practitioners, and it was on par with the different generations. The Gen Zs have an attention span very minimal compared to the way we are wired, and I say we, the Gen X versus the Gen Zs, and so it depends when you look at it in a scientific way as to who your target audience is that you are speaking to. And this is something that I really take a serious look at when I create needs assessment strategies for people, speaking to corporate to see what level of awareness are they about raw and refined sugar, or is it a younger group? And I keep it really right, focused onto what their interests are, and so I gauge it that way. Now, when you're coming into the realm of podcasting, you're going that route. I guess you want to keep a certain method to your madness in presenting. But I think it's so critical that unless you have someone like, what is it, Joe Rogan, or someone that, or Oprah, that anybody will spend 2 hours just listening to them, you really have to gauge who your guest is and who your audience is and who you're targeting this to. So that's my take. Sorry about that. I know I go into a long-winded thing, but I think that's really important.
That's perfectly all right, Leslie, and I appreciate what you said, and I totally agree with you 100%. I wanted to acknowledge Simon. Simon, I'm not really sure if you were able to go through the whole PDF. Do you have any questions, Simon from Clubhouse? Do you have any question, anything you'd like to ask me before we wrap the show up? Simon, I think you are still on mute, so let me know if you're available. All right, Simon might be away from his desk or his cell phone. So anyways, guys, I want to quickly let you know that I'm going to be doing another show. I promised myself that I'm going to be taking a break and sticking to my break, which I did. And trust me, it is very relieving, and I highly encourage entrepreneurs, business owners, at least you should take a 30 to 40 day break from your schedule and not do anything and just get bored. Be lazy. Just lie down and sleep for hours and not just don't do anything. And it just helps you to get such a refreshing amount of energy, which you can then later on you can use it for my projects. So I skipped away from the traditional route of what I was doing daily when I took this break, and I worked on interesting aspects. That's how I was able to create this ultimate podcast sponsorship kit. I wanted to create a passive income stream for myself. I wanted something which I can promote during my episode, have a little extra bucks so that I don't have to invest too much. Subscription costs are slightly going up. I want to ensure that you get compensated for the amount of work which you're doing, and that helped me to design this course. During this holiday season, I also worked just improving my overall brand strategic process, and I was able to make a lot of enhancements through it. And I was able to deep down and get more research done. So I'm going to do a next show, which is scheduled on March 29th, 2023 at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm going to challenge the idea that branding is not essential for business success. I gathered all my notes, and I personally have a feeling that you don't necessarily need a brand to succeed. Now, some marketers, designers such as myself may not really like the idea, but I'm going to give you insights why I feel it's not really necessary. So we're just going to challenge. I'm not saying that it's not important, but I can say that there are many businesses which are out there who choose not to invest in branding, but they still exist in the market and they still thrive. So I'm going to address that, and I was only able to think of this creative idea because I was able to get a break and I was able to declutter the things in my mind. So please tune in to that episode. Please do not miss that out. It's going to be very, very insightful, and I think you're going to love it. Please take care of yourself. Have a lovely morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you're in the world. I appreciate this love and support. You take care of yourself, guys.